Hi everyone, I'm on a mission to make real life places look way much better. This is my second attempt and I'm pretty sure I have improved since last time. If you remember, my first attempt was transforming a random street in Pretoria, and yeah, let's just say it could have been better. But that was 2 years ago, and trust me, I've learned a lot since then. I also been practicing to make characters and games, so my focus weren't as much on YouTube, neither was it on environment art. Oh, and sorry not for uploading more often, I was busy studying, and guess what? I'm done with that, so hopefully I can upload more videos. And if you want me to create your favorite place or a new scene, just drop a comment below and I'll make that. Alright, now that I've gotten the basic stuff out of the way, let's dive right in. This work was made for the Chasm 1 month challenge by Pwnisher. This is my first ever challenge minus the game jams, so I hope I did okay. The challenge was to create something using a provided template and of course create that. Since I recently visited Cape Town, I thought why not transfer Table Mountain into a fantasy world. Because you know, who doesn't like fantasy? To kick things off, I gathered some references. Pinterest, Google Images and ArtStation were my best friends. Once I had my references, I started blocking out the scene with basic shapes. First things first, the mountains. Of course I start with Table Mountain because Table Mountain is going to be king of the show. Next I worked on Lion's Head, keeping it simple and not spending too much time on it. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of me modeling the platform that the mountains stand on, so long story short, I went to Google Maps and tried to make sure my model lines up as closely as possible to the image I got on Google Maps. Once the blocking was done, it was sculpting time, my favorite. So some of you might wonder, why not just use the A&T landscape add-on? Well, I wanted to improve my sculpting skills, not just for characters but for environments too, to improve in all areas other than just character creation. And also I love sculpting. So here's a 4-hour sculpt sped up in a few seconds because the magic of video editing. When sculpting, I first work on the primary forms, making sure everything fits right and looks good from not just in 3D view but also in the camera view, and make sure that my main form stays the main focus, because if your form breaks, no matter how much detail you add, the detail will not make up for the terrible shape. So what I do is I always work on my primary form, making sure that it fits and looks perfectly first. Then I'm working on to the secondary forms, that is mostly being deep crevices and deep cuts and such. And then I work on my tertiary forms that I mostly prefer to do through texturing, but sometimes I'll do through sculpting as well. Especially in game characters, I first do the tertiary sculpts and bake those high detail into my low poly models to get those details in. But since I'm planning to do procedural texturing, I only left the tertiary details to texturing. With sculpting finished, I move on to texturing. I decided to go with procedural textures because I was on a time crunch, and I didn't want to get caught up into the unwrapping horror. And luckily this is for a short video and not for a video game, otherwise I had to remesh and bake the details and rigging and remeshing and. But luckily I don't have to do that. I want to make a lot of buildings that will be placed onto the platform, and the only two methods I know how to do that is through Blender's particle system and geometry nodes. And I've never used geometry nodes before, so why not go with the harder options and choose geometry nodes? Now I can't go and learn exactly how to use geometry nodes, spending days, months, or even years learning. Or I can just follow this guy on YouTube. Thank you random guy for teaching me how to use geometry nodes. So to explore more the genre of the fantasy world, I want to add a castle to the middle of the scene to draw the viewer's attention and create a focal point. But I first had to block out the castle, then I can start working on to details, keeping my references in mind on my second screen. Now it's onto texturing, where I was forced to unwrap the model, so that I can easily move the UVs in the UV view, to make the bricks flow better, and flow into the right direction. While I was busy with the texturing, I also worked on adding basic lights like torches to the castle. I wasn't really happy with the tiny buildings on the platform, so I decided to add trees from Blender Kit. Now we wait and see my PC explode. Time to optimize. I used the decimate modifier to lower the poly count. Thankfully the trees are far away from the camera, so no one will notice. Or will they? Dun dun dun. Why did I add this to the script? Then I added variations to the trees by duplicating them and changing a few things here and there to add some variation. The island was looking pretty empty, so I added rocks, duplicating the geometry nodes that I used for the trees, make a few tweaks, and voila, rocks. I textured them using this node setup. Now it's on to creating the character. When I found out Marvelous Designer was available for free for a month, I jumped onto it, and there's no way I can skip this opportunity to learn a new software that's industry standard. I used the character I made for a third-year group project and created the cloak for the main character in Marvelous Designer. I also added some basic animation for the character casting a spell over the island, and I also simulated that cloth in Marvelous Designer so that my PC doesn't catch on fire when I use Blender for simulations. For the foreground, I added some rocks and I textured it with the textures from Polyhaven. Not sponsored by the way, but it is really amazing site to get free CC0 textures. And I also changed a few things here and there using more of these node setups. To make it feel more mysterious, I added clouds around the mountains, because who doesn't love clouds in the fantasy world? The mage can't look like a silly clown waving its staff in the air, so I added thunder. I added some thunder effect from the pack that was given to us in the challenge and gave it a purple hue for the extra magical touch. Now the final thing to do is break everything up into layers so that I can change things later into compositing and give that extra pop and spark that every client is asking for. And then I click the render button and wait 30 hours to render. I'm not going to bore you with the composites process, but if you're interested, here's the entire node setup that I used. It's also the compositing breakdown, so that you can see how I added layers and how I added effects afterwards on top of it. Now it's time to add everything together and learn a new software that I've never used. The software is called DaVinci Resolved, and I had to use this because my Adobe license expired since I'm no longer a student and I can't use Adobe After Effects or Premiere Pro. And then I also added the dust particles from the pack that was provided for us, and this is the final render. Honestly, this challenge was a big learning experience for me. I can already see how much I've grown since my last project. It feels really rewarding to see how far I've come, especially when I look back at my earlier work. I really appreciate you sticking around to watch this whole video through. It means a lot to me. If you liked the video, please drop a like and maybe even subscribe for more content. And thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.